So I always love panels because they're fun. You get to have several people, which, as you noticed, there's only 3 of us up here. One gentleman, Matthew from Hershey, got caught in the Chicago weather yesterday, so he's not coming in until a little bit later today. But you've got the 3 of us. But it's always fun to do these panels because it brings 3 people that just met and allows us to really collaborate and bring some thinking together in what we all love, and that's marketing. So to introduce here to my left, I have Michael Reynolds. Michael's from the Campbell Soup Company, Integrated Marketing Manager. And then over here on my far left, I have Bonnie Brannigan from Kalmbach Feeds, which we're going to learn more about both of those brands. Kalmbach, 60-year-old-ish brand, right? And then, of course, Campbell's a 100-plus-year-old brand. So just to build on everything that we've been talking about this morning so far, media fragmentation, audiences, data, how all of that fuels the top of the funnel, the bottom of the funnel, and all of that fun stuff. So, Bonnie, let's go ahead and start with you first. Just looking at the funnel and the consumer path and all the data that it generates. At Kalmbach, which maybe you could start by giving a little intro on Kalmbach, how do you guys use that data, and do you focus more upper funnel as far as working with audiences and filling it, or more the lower funnel with conversions?
Thank you, Tim. Just to give you a little introduction to Kalmbach Feeds, we are a family-owned, fast-growth animal feed company. So we feed animals. I'd like to say if it has a face, we will feed it. But we focus mostly in the agriculture space, and my focus specifically is mostly on horses, performance horses, and chickens. Do you know anyone who has chickens in their backyard? Most everybody does. Somewhere between 2 to 4% of households in America have backyard chickens. And on the horse side, it's another very big area where I focus. And we have a performance brand called Tribute Equine Nutrition. Anyone a horse person in the audience? Okay, terrific. So, and we have a handful of brands that serve the backyard poultry audience. So anyway, we have very specific targeted audiences, as you can imagine. It would not be likely for us to run mass media advertising. There would be a lot of waste there. So what we tend to focus on, because we are growing, we are regional, and we don't have full distribution, we tend to focus on top of the funnel metrics, brand awareness, brand attitudes, perceptions, and that sort of thing in our advertising. We do have a couple of core markets that are further along in that funnel, so then we do start to look at the conversions, if you will, and performance, sales.
Perfect. All right, Michael, so integrated market, we talked a little bit over drinks last night, and it was interesting. You know, you said you're actually more of a consultant for a lot of the brand managers. So could you talk a little bit about that and just your role with the Campbell Soup Company and how all that works, and then we can get into some more questions?
Sure. What I do at Campbell's is more like I mentioned, a consultancy is because we have a center of excellence. So Campbell's right now is divided into 2 business units. We have our snacking business, which is Pepperidge Farm, Goldfish, Milano Cookies, et cetera, and Snyder's Lance, which is the pretzels, Cape Cod chips, kettle chips, as well as meals and beverage, which is obviously soup, which is our naming, Campbell Soup, Prego, Pacific, Swanson Broth, V8, Plum Organics, et cetera. Now, where I sit is in this little mini world of digital and other marketing service capability, where we sit across the enterprise. And what we do is we work with the brands. We get an idea of what the brand objectives are, what the strategic goals are, their marketing objectives, and then I come in and try to help them with the role of digital. I'm split into basically 4 parts. I'm on the consumer connections team. So the consumer connections team is as we try to break down silos that a lot of CPG companies are going through. I heard PepsiCo speak about it a little bit. Is break down silos. How do we have one look at the consumer journey, and how do we leverage that data across? So we're not talking to 16 different moms, as all the brands are trying to do, and realize that there's literally one mom that serves all the brand services. I do digital strategy and partnerships, so that's more the consultancy role. I come in and try to figure out how do we leverage e-com, social media, online, and experiential for the brand to spend money more efficiently. And then innovation, digital innovation for Campbell's is more like bringing them back into this current century and doing things like that. 150-plus-year-old company, so you can imagine we're still doing banner ads. And then just building the digital capability in-house. A lot of our brand managers are more general managers, per se, and I think one of the presenters earlier said it very well. Digital marketing is not a thing. Marketing is digital in this age, so just trying to raise their capabilities as well.
Yeah, I love that. Now, Michael, you mentioned just the consumer journey. So from your seat, looking at the digital side, website side, so walk us through a little bit, kind of maybe just the macro stages of that from Campbell's perspective of, bringing that consumer into, the consumer path and sort of walking them all the way through and kind of holding their hands to get them into the retailer. Sure.
This has been a year-plus journey for me leading this consumer journey work. What we're trying to do, like I mentioned, is break down silos. And so we've come up with a consumer connections toolkit way across the enterprise, so we can leverage actually the size of our company for more good than bad. So I think the way we look at it is trying to build like customer lifetime value. So if you think about it, we have brands from baby food with Plum Organics all the way up to V8 Original, which is 65 plus. So how do we keep that consumer across? So as we looked at it, we come with I know it seems a little bit generic to this day, but 5 stages. You have inspire, discover, consider, why am I blanking? Purchase, and give me that. Buy and repurchase. Thank you. Sorry. But how we looked at it is more macro is we start with a consumer mindset map. So this what we did is we worked with our insights team and we broke down all the information that's been done, all the data and analytics we've gotten across the enterprise, and then we've built personas and we've built different consumer segmentation across the board, across all the different brands. After you find out where your consumer's mindset is and get a better understanding of who you're trying to target and talk to, you map them along the consumer journey, develop the one moment that your brand has best value proposition, and then it leads to a comms framework. So what we've been trying to do is pass that along through all the brands, feed it through, and it's been built a lot of efficiencies. A lot of brands have been able to partner with each other and et cetera, so it's been really good. It's been a year journey, though.
Okay, perfect. All right, Bonnie. So transparently, I live in the horse capital of the world, Kentucky, but I have not worked on any horse-related brands, so I'm anxious to hear a little bit more about this. So from your perspective, playing more in the awareness consideration part of the funnel, we had some email communication last week just about targeting, I think, horse owners is how you said it, right? So how are you guys, from a retail marketing perspective, identifying those horse owners? Are you working with third-party data providers? Are you leveraging your first-party data?
I wish we had third-party data. No, we do have affiliations with horse organizations. There is a very large event I was just talking with Andrew about called the A Quarter Horse Congress. It's the largest horse event in the world, and it's in Columbus, Ohio, right where we are located, and we are the official feed sponsor there. So we have affiliations and sponsorships with organizations that help us tap into the horse owner. But we also have to do our own research and generate our own data. So through research, we can understand their attitudes and usage, where they buy the product. Horse feed is an extremely technical and high research product. You know how people are getting more technical about and more research driven about their dogs and their dog food? Take that and put it on steroids. Horse feed, people are extremely high involvement process. So with our website, it's a lot of information because people are searching for a lot of technical information. In fact, I have a staff member who does almost half of her job is talking one-on-one with horse owners to help them find the exact right product for them, which is pretty amazing. So how do we find them? We find them through our various channels of the events we sponsor. We also sponsor notable riders who help us open up their channels to them. And we can find them through, one of our segments is horse racing, for example, so we know who the trainers are and so forth. So it's pretty targeted and pretty, that's not the most difficult part, finding them.
All right, so at Empower, we talk a lot about media and message and just the importance of them aligning. And in today's day and age with the data that's available, it's a lot easier than it ever has been, but yet it's still challenging. So I'll let you both sort of take this one. Whoever wants to go first, chime in. But how are you guys leveraging the data to help make sure that, you know, whatever the advertising is, to make sure that that message is relevant for the consumer? Are you customizing, et cetera?
How we leverage the data. I think it's a challenge for us. It's a challenge. Traditionally, we put it through all like the advertising tests, et cetera. But I think what we've been focusing now is getting more real results, and I think we leverage third-party data more than anything, especially being in the digital space. But social listening is a huge thing for us. We like to build little communities within our networks and different things, and we test our ads there a lot. So we get more real feedback. We always believe that people that will talk about your brand will always be the most upfront honest, especially when they're sharing it with their internal community. So that's been a big shift in how we look at our messaging instead of the traditional, sending out for testing and getting that back. I think another way we've done is being more diverse. We have a lot of networks within our organization. So we have like a LGBTQ network, we have a Black, Hispanic, stuff like that. So bringing them in as we test different advertisings first to get their opinions before we go down that route has been a huge help. A lot of things we've done in partnerships with Pride and et cetera. We've leveraged our open network more than anything. And I think what it's showing is a different way of thinking for Campbell's, and that sometimes real human interaction and real human testament is more important. And I think we've found a healthy balance between the two.
Okay, great.
As the gentleman from Pepsi said, sometimes you don't have, you don't have perfect data, or you don't have real-time insight, and that's really true for us. Our products are not sold in the traditional mass retail, so we don't capture sales tracking and that sort of thing. So what can we do? What can we track? Again, we can track geographic sales progress. We can track individual retailer progress. But a lot of our data usage is really at the top of the funnel again. And we do research when we're doing product development. We do research when we're doing packaging development. In fact, we did a qualitative study on some packaging testing, and it really drove the key points that we wanted to make on that package. It uncovered some things that were very important to the woman who buys our products that we would not have known. So that was terrific.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so let's talk a little bit about just media in general and the media fragmentation that's out there. We know that, to reach consumers today, you've got to communicate in a lot of different ways. So from each one of your guys' perspectives, and I know yours is going to be a little swayed digital just because of your given role, but are there any newer platforms, newer media offerings, newer tactics that you guys have tested? And if so, what are some of your learnings that you can share with the group? And these could be things like, advanced TV, addressable TV, any newer forms of digital marketing, anything like that you can share?
Okay. We've tried recently working with a partner, and their tool is called Venue Replay. And what it can do is you can put a geo-fence around a venue, and you can capture the IP and dates. So anything back 6 months ago, you can go and capture a venue, put in those dates. And so for those large horse events, we can go and grab IP addresses from devices that were in that venue during that time when there were several 100,000 people on site. And then we can serve ads to them and engage with them now that they're home. So it's going back in time and capturing the IP addresses of who were at that venue as long as 6 months ago. So you can do that on an ongoing basis, but you can also go back in time. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it's really interesting to see the kind of click-through rates. I mean, I know it's digital advertising and PPC, but it's very interesting for us to see how we can build awareness for those people who were in the venue and now are at home, and you can serve ads on all of their devices in that home.
For me, and I'll let you know about the results sooner than later, but I should probably get an email pretty soon. But programmatic out-of-home is something that we're working with a lot on our V8 brands. It's been a rough start to it, and it's a very new thing for me. But I think as we realize that people spend less time in the house and watching television, we've been leveraging with 2 of our V8 brands, the traditional, we call it Red, but our original, in different like health clinics and things for like where seniors would go to, and on the screens there, as well as one of our newer products, V8 Hydrate, in gyms and different things, and also in hydration stations. We've been playing, one of the cool things we've been playing with is a beverage that rehydrates you from a little bit too much drinking, get over those hangovers, etc. So that's my little baby there, so I'm proud of that. But programmatic out-of-home is something we're trying to play into a little bit more, and results pending. We'll see.
Okay, perfect. Well, I can geek out a little bit about that with you. We actually, you're going to hear TD talk about this a little bit in Jack Link's presentation, but we did programmatic out of home for them for the first time this year. So kind of going back to my media and message question with that specific example, are you guys, because of those different locations and reaching, desired audiences, are you tailoring the messaging for those locations, or are you doing sort of a, very specific product message?
No, definitely tailored. I think one of the big things that I'm happy about in this new digital world is the access to data, and so as it comes in, we're trying to be as personalized as possible. There's been so many studies done on like how much more receptive consumers are when the message is more tailored, more personalized. So as the data comes in, we've been tailoring the message. We've been testing, A/B testing different messages throughout. So I think in the PepsiCo presentation they mentioned this as well, as moving more of the audience-centric consumer first instead of the traditional pushing the brand message out. So we've been letting the consumer speak to us and then telling them what they want to hear and in the language they want to hear it. So I think that's a big push for us as well.
Awesome. Well, I want to save a few minutes for questions here, from the audience, but I have one last question, and it's just a very general question, so you can answer it however you want. Looking out to the future, what's one thing that excites you about marketing? Could be anything advertising, marketing related.
Okay. I'm going to say 2 things. One, for us in our work that is really exciting is that we are working into neuroscience to peel back the layers of the reasons why people buy and how the different parts of the brain make the decision. Apparently, you like to think that your logical brain is making those decisions for buying the products, and it's based on the explicit benefits because this product has this feature that is really important to you, but really the underlying subliminal limbic brain and reptilian brain are actually driving those decisions. And so we're peeling back the layers with qualitative research to understand what is really the need that consumer has. Back to, the brands, we're good at covering off quality, safety, and trust, and what's next? What is the meaning of that brand? And it's really interesting research. It's going to uncover for us what is the gap and the implicit need that consumer really is trying to fill with this purchase. We tend to think of the horse owner as having a very strong emotional bond with their horse. What is that emotional bond? What is at the root of it, so that we can speak to those parts of the brain? So that's personally very exciting. And briefly, in terms of looking out on the future, I've been marketer for 30 years, and when I started, it was all about creative and pretty pictures and beautiful words and all, and I really love the idea that we are really converging the art and the science in marketing are really, really exciting.
For me, it's, I think, two things as well. I think, really, like I mentioned prior, the access to data. I think personalization is super key, and as you think about a company as old as ours, and with the rise of, private label and other DTC things, is connecting with with the consumer and building that brand connection and be able to communicate it in a personalized way is how we're going to survive. White label doesn't do that, and we really believe our DTC, though it's not in delivery, it's direct to consumer connection, right? So how do we build that trust within the consumer and find a place in their lives? And then AI and machine learning. I think as that continues to push in that technological advances, it's like how much more less of work I have to do, to be completely candid. And I think we're moving to a place where a lot of this work and a lot of the messages coming from the brand can be automated. And I think that's going to be very helpful, especially as we continue to push and push and push and push with all the messages and as we communicate to the consumers.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Do we have time for questions or two, Steve?
We do. Questions? Yep.
Hi, it's Mark from Prestige Consumer Healthcare. How you doing? This question's kind of for Michael, but also for the Pepsi guys and really everybody here, is as we talk about data and targeting and personalization, all these great idealized ad experiences or marketing experiences, but you're working with all these brand managers, how often do they come back to you and say, that's all great, but what about my mass reach and my baseline awareness and my $5 CPM?
Oh, man. No, I think there's a lot of education first that goes behind it. And I think the more data you have, the better the target, the better the audience, and the better the return. And I think that's how we preach it to them. And I think as I work with these brand managers that literally live a day in life where it's all about their brand and they wake up and breathe and live it and feel it. I think it's making them understand that the more we know about a consumer or the more information we can gather, the more we can then be proactive within. And then we got to move from renting. I call it, we have to move from renting eyeballs to owning them. And I think that's just the reality we live in. It costs a lot of money to continually reach all these same people over and over. But what data does is it gives you an opportunity to own those eyes. And what it does is lower the cost, but also raises the impact. And if you think about customer lifetime value, is the more eyeballs you own, the more people you have that you can speak to for free.
Yeah, and I would add to it, just from a planning perspective, it's balance. I think you have to balance them out. There isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't get that same very question from clients. And you have to look at the one-to-many and the one-to-one and really try to balance that out and figure out what's right for whatever your objective is.
How much of this process is forcing each of you to bring more of this in-house? In order to stay fleet, in order to have control of the data, how has this changed your relationship with agencies, and how much of this you're doing in-house and how much you're outsourcing?
I mean, the reason why I have the job I have is because of this. And I think Campbell's are traditionally brand marketers, GMs, and everyone had their own agency, et cetera, and there was no need for a center of excellence and things like that. But as these changes are happening in the consumer landscape, it's forced us to go out and create a marketing services arm of the business. And I think the reality is you need specialists. And I think and the way it works in our world is the brand's responsible for the brand health, and then the specialists are responsible for the activation side of it. So we've brought a lot of this work in-house and is now leverage agencies more in a consulting way or just for creative. So a lot of times it's us making the decision, and it's easier for us to hone in onto what's best for our brands and not necessarily what we used to let the agencies dictate, I guess, how our strategies were.
We believe that we need to own the strategy and own the brand and then use experts where necessary. We have a lean team in-house, but we tap into agencies as consultants, agencies for creative, but we're owning it.
Bonnie, I wanted to pick up on one of your points about needing to, about investigating what brand means and the different tools you're using now to research brands. How are you in relationship to your competitive set? Where are you in relation to the competitors, and how do you break through with that sense of broader meaning and brand impact against a competitor?
A great question. We are a challenger brand. We're really a startup. We're 15 years old, and we're the fastest growing brand when I talk about our horse feed brand. And our competitors are multinational organizations that are heavily vested in a traditional marketing approach. And so we have green ground to go on. They have a lot bigger budgets and a lot more presence, huge brand awareness. But I look at it as kind of a David and Goliath thing. We've got to be nimble, strategic, and use the new tools. I was telling Nina earlier, I don't tend to look at our direct competitors so much to see what they are doing. I try to learn from the really great pet food brands, because that's really who I think we should be emulating is some up-and-coming pet food brands.
Michael, you mentioned that having to fight against, the sort of the white labeling and needing to elevate brands. Are there specific brands within Campbell's that have sort of already achieved or are closer to achieving that special resonance with consumers that you're sort of using as a model for others to follow?
Right now, I think our the brand that gets the most love within the walls is probably Goldfish. I think they do a great job of differentiation and showing what value they have in their consumers' life. I think they have a very great understanding of who their consumer is and who their brand is and how where the synergies are with that consumer's life and what the brand can offer. And I also think they have been very good at being omni-centered, right? I think at all channels they show up the same way, whether it's digital, offline, online, et cetera. And I think they're like the gold standard, which annoys most people in the company, but that's how it is. I also think, but they also had the value of their brand that the people who grew up on Goldfish are now having kids. So now it's a brand that they're passed down. We have a lot of legacy brands at Campbell's. We could use the word legacy. You could use the word old, synonymous, that are trying to break that mold. And but that's like Goldfish is one of our gold standards, and I think Pacific broth is one of our Pacific foods would be one of our other gold standards.
Tim is going to be extending this conversation in a roundtable at the end of the morning. Tim, Bonnie, Michael, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.